The Great Famine. The Great Famine was one of the most devastating events to ever strike Ireland, and it had major repercussions on the world that still influences society today. At first, the potato seemed heaven-sent. It thrived in damp Irish climate, was easy to grow, and produced a high yield per acre. In the period from 1780 to 1845, it helped double the Irish population from 4 to 8 million. However, this population explosion came an increased demand for land. The only solution was to divide the available parcels into even smaller plots for succeeding generations. Soon, the diminished size of these plots dictated the planting of potatoes, as it was the only crop that could produce a sufficient yield of food on such a limited acreage. By 1840, fully one-third of Ireland's population was totally dependent on the potato for its nourishment. It was a dependency teetered on the brink of starvation and created a time bomb that needed only the slightest spark to explode. Phytophthora infestin, or late blight, was the name of the disease that wiped out millions of potatoes, causing the Great Famine. The highlands of central Mexico are considered by many to be the center of origin for Phytophthora infestin, although others have proposed its origin to be in the Andes, which is also the origin of potatoes. The blight spread from the Americas to the ports of Ireland, where it spread through that year's potato crop like a wildfire, causing many people to starve or completely lose their income. It is estimated that in 1845, one-third of all the potatoes in Ireland were lost to the blight. The 1845 famine was followed up by even worse famines in 1846 through 1851, which led to the deaths of about 1.5 million people. It also led to about 2 million people deserting Ireland in search for a better life. These conditions worsened due to most people affected by the famine being extremely poor, making them unable to purchase any other food. This led to the British not helping as much as they could have, and are still criticized to this day for not doing enough to help. For many decades after the famine, there was a large-scale emigration from Ireland. It led to a decline in the Irish population. In 1840, there were 8.5 million people in Ireland. In 1960, there were only 4.5 million, despite the country having a high birth rate. Many Irish people had left the country for America and elsewhere prior to the famine. However, because of the famine, millions were to leave the country. This was to have dramatic consequences for the populations of many countries. Soon, there were substantial Irish communities all over the world. These Irish immigrants helped to develop the economics of their new homes. Irish immigrants settled on the frontier in countries such as America, Canada, and Australia. Immigrants from Ireland helped these nations to expand and grow. However, as many of the Irish were Catholics, this led to sectarian tensions with existing Protestant communities in countries such as America and Canada. Perhaps the greatest economic impact of the famine was a change in the nature of landholding and agriculture. Prior to the Great Famine, the vast majority of Irish families suffered on farms that were less than 2 acres. They survived on what they could grow, mostly potatoes. However, after the famine, this was no longer possible, and one of the main impacts of the famine was that farms became larger in order to ensure that they provided families with a sustainable level of income. Many landowners who mostly lived in London sought to exploit this situation in the aftermath of the famine. Many of their poor tenants had left the land in their farms. They landowners sought to encourage livestock rearing on the estates, which was more profitable. Increasingly, Ireland moved from arable farming to livestock rearing. However, this led to a great deal of unemployment in the country and did not benefit the poor. As a result, Ireland remained a poverty-stricken country. The famine led to great social changes. Prior to the famine, Irish people married young and had large families. After the horrors of the famine, Irish people married later, and if they did not have a reasonable-sized farm or chance of steady employment, they never married. As a result of these changes, Ireland had a high rate of unmarried and single people, and this led to social problems, in particular high levels of alcoholism. The famine was an extraordinary tragedy for Ireland. It led to mass starvation and an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. It decisively shaped Irish society for many decades and even to the present day. The famine resulted in increased tensions not only between Catholic and Protestant, but between Britain and Ireland. These tensions led to violence and instability for many years. Its most durable legacy was in continuing high levels of emigration from the country, which lasted until at least the 1990s. This was a tragedy for Ireland, and as a result of emigration, the Irish population has still not recovered to its pre-famine level. However, the famine led a massive wave of emigration and had significant consequences for many nations, especially in North America. Irish immigrants helped countries such as Canada and America to fulfill their potential and become great countries.
What is so funny?
I swear I heard of Minecraft.
Are you still recording?